grew up in a tough environment. My mom, she drank alcohol and took prescription drugs. And we had no money, no food. And then the thing that changed my whole life was a knock on the door on Thanksgiving. There was this tall guy standing there with 2 bags of groceries and an uncooked frozen turkey in a pan. He said, "We don't take charity." And he went and slammed the door on the guy. But it became a very useful distinction for me about how he and I processed that day differently. For example, that day, my dad's focus was the fact he did not fit his family, and he was worthless. However, I took that as stranger's care. So what I decided to do is someday I'm going to do this for others and end suffering where I can. My mom was probably the most important influence in my life by far. And under that stress, she drank alcohol and took prescription drugs. And when she did that, she became very violent. So I took the brunt of that and then figured out how to manage her emotions, basically. And yet at the same time, she was loving and she pushed me. She believed in me. She wanted me to be something. And then probably what changed my life the most, though, is my forefather especially made it clear no one gives a damn about anybody else. We were, literally right by the railroad tracks where the worst of the worst lived, so to speak. And he had no money, no food. When I say no food, we had crackers and peanut butter. But you get the knock on the door, and I go open the door, and there's this tall guy standing there with 2 bags of groceries, one in each hand. And at his feet, he had an uncooked frozen turkey in a pan, He looked at this man before the guy said a word, and he said, "We don't take charity." And he went and slammed the door on the guy, but the man had leaned in because of the groceries and it hit his shoulder and it bounced off, which made my dad even madder. And they said, "Sir, sir," he said, "somebody knows you're having a tough time." He said, "Sir," he said, he saw me, he said, "Don't make your family, suffer because of your ego." And I can still see it like it was yesterday. My dad's veins on both sides of his neck were just pumping and he was red as can be. And then he just dropped his shoulders. He took the groceries. He slammed it on the table and he slammed the door and he never even said thank you. It became a very useful distinction for me about how he and I processed that day differently, because I believe there's 3 decisions you make every moment of your life. It wasn't just that he didn't feed his family, it's that he was worthless. But I took that as stranger's care. It completely violated everything I had experienced in my life up until that point. And so what I decided to do is someday I'm going to do this for others. Everyone has tough times. I hope you have a beautiful Thanksgiving. And someday, if you can, pay this forward. And the first house I went to is a little tiny place. I knock on the door, and this woman about this tall, Hispanic woman, sees me and sees the food and screams and then grabs my head and pulls it down and starts kissing me on the cheek. I said, no, delivery boy. And she said, and I pull out the note and I flipped it over in Spanish and she read it and then she started to cry and she started giving me kissing. I said, "No, delivery." She goes, "No, gift of God, gift of God." And I'm trying not to cry. I'm just like, I feel like it was yesterday still.